Welcome to Breaking Financial Chains, where we combine practical money guidance with emotional healing to help you break free from financial limitations. I'm Tanya Riverson, your financial wingwoman.
Hi there, and welcome to this episode of Breaking Financial Chains, the podcast. I'm so happy that you're here. Today's episode, we are going to talk about the quiet habits that build big futures. This is all around legacy, financial legacy, and those actions that we take that start in private. I think it's really easy to think about legacy from the point of view of what you leave behind. But if we do that and we focus on that, we miss out on what we can take advantage of right now with the legacy of the life that we're living and the examples that we're setting for people that might be looking up to us or following our path to decide what might work for them, those little people that we have in our lives. So financial legacy isn't just about something that you leave to someone in a will. It's about showing them how you can live a life the way that you want to, and we can use money as a mechanism and a support to achieve that. So the themes for this episode are around invisible effort, sustainable growth, and identity-aligned wealth building that we can all get involved in and that we can all participate in regardless of the starting point. So it really does open with redefining what legacy means. It's about what you're living right now rather than what you're going to be leaving behind for the people that are going to be here after you aren't. And that starts with the quiet decisions that no one sees. I think it's easy to set an example with what we spend. It's easy to set an example and for people to see what we bring into our homes, what we flash around potentially on Instagram. But what people don't necessarily see unless we tell them is the savings pots that we have, the investing pots, the money that we're quietly moving from one account to another. That is done privately, and some of that can contribute towards the whole saving is boring. It's not as fun as spending and those great flashy photographs that we can share on social media or show our friends, or giving an example or giving an expectation that living your best life is to flash the cash. Because quite often what we see in reality is that the people that are doing that are the ones that are doing it with the help of a credit card. The people that are doing that because they want to have that image in the public domain for everybody to see. That's not necessarily the reality that is behind the behaviours that we see from some people. So quiet decisions might look like choosing awareness over avoidance, choosing an awareness of what our credit card balance is or our savings balance is, rather than just sticking those bank statements in a drawer if they arrive through the post, if they even come through the post these days, right? We all just look on our apps, don't we? It looks like saying no to chaos spending or reactionary emotional spending. It looks like building buffers and safety nets, which ultimately looks like prioritizing peace. What does peace look like for you? What does the elimination of panic look like for you? And if that's something that you quite fancy a little piece of, then keep listening, because we're going to cover that in today's episode. I mentioned earlier on about saving being boring. But I mean, the reality is that big futures are built on boring habits. And we can apply that to all of the things that we want to achieve, whether that's a fitness habit that we want to build up in order to look a certain way, or the meal prep that we do on a Sunday so that our food is taken care of during the week, the water that we drink every day to maintain our hydration. It is the exact same with money. And that's about emotional budgeting as much as the financial spreadsheets and the automatic transfers that we set up and the sweep facilities on our bank accounts. It's about understanding what is important to us to give us that sleep at night factor. As boring as that sounds, that feels pretty great to me. And to not have that panic wake us up in the middle of the night, or the worry about whether things are going to be okay if we send our kids on a school trip, or if we book a family holiday in the summer several months from now. It's about checking our bank balances with curiosity, not fear. Checking it to see what the balances are doing, maybe what the interest rate is looking like on our savings, checking our credit card statements to look at what that balance is, rather than I'll just check how much capacity I have on that bank account or that credit card because I know I've got a big unexpected bill coming up. Having the power and the ability to say not right now to something instead of you only live once, sod it, let's just spend the money. Having that staying power to know that we're working towards a goal, whether that's a financial goal, a savings goal, or we're trying to work on our new habits rather than falling back into old patterns, because the immediate people-pleasing tendency we might have, for example, is to always say yes and always be that person, because we're choosing sleep over a hustle high, ultimately, at the end of the day. So the private victory that we want, it's about having that self-trust that we know we are doing the right thing for us, rather than what we want other people to see or believe in what they can see with our behaviours. So ultimately looking at before any big career leap or before any big house purchase or the debt freedom came months, if not years, of consistent invisible work. It's that whole overnight success phenomenon you might see online. I call absolute rubbish on that sentiment, because it isn't an overnight success. It might be that you've only just noticed it now, or you've only just noticed the fruits of that labour now, but that's taken months and months and years of consistent creation of content, of consistently showing up online, of consistently sharing results. It's the same with our savings. It's consistently putting money away in a pension, into ISAs, into investing platforms, into savings accounts, to know that you have enough to be covered when those unexpected things happen, because there's nothing as certain as uncertainty, and all we can do is prepare as best as we can and try and get that balance right between what might happen in the future and where we want to be now and living the life that we want to live right now. But legacy starts in the decision to stay in the room with your money. It comes from allowing compound interest to work its magic, which starts with those small habits of consistently putting money away without constantly looking at what the performance and the results are looking like. Those private moments then get to become public power. They then get to become the example that you show to others. Because I think we really are a society now, or we're becoming a society where everything's expected to be instant gratification, instant delivery, next day delivery. I want a takeaway and I want it right now, and I'm going to go on Uber Eats and they're going to bring it to me because I can't be bothered to cook a meal. I haven't got the energy to go and do that or go and buy it myself. We're getting into the habit of expecting things to be done right now, and that just isn't the reality of how things are built up, whether that's a fitness, a weight loss journey, or money from a savings point of view. And being able to change those habits means that potentially you're looking at having or adopting an identity shift of sorts that helps those quiet habits become the reality for you, that helps those quiet habits be created to get you where you want to be. So yes, I am going back to those value pieces, those what is important to you, not what you see somebody on Instagram having that you quite fancy a little bit of. Each small act of intention then gets to reinforce that belief in you. I'm someone that takes care of my money. And if you don't feel that you're in a place where you could write that down and actually believe it, then it is the small habits on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that will shift you to becoming somebody that actually does that. Even if that just starts off with £5 a month, £10 a month, £50 a month, whatever that is for you, and leaving that money somewhere to grow. It's about giving ourselves the evidence, showing our brains that we can do things differently to get a different outcome that we might choose. How does that get me closer to that goal? And I'm going to start doing things on a regular basis to get me there. It's the quiet, boring habits that then get to create something that is worth shouting about, that is worth leaving behind and showing others how you've been able to achieve that. Repetition then becomes part of our identity. We become someone who saves in the same way as we might become someone who gets our steps in every day, who drinks enough water, who spends some time on some creative activities if that's who you want to be. It's the consistent actions that we take that get to change the identity, because then somebody who does look after their money, somebody who does regularly save, gets to see the results of somebody who saves, of somebody who looks after their money and has available funds to choose something that's really fun or something that's particularly aligned because we've planned to do that. Not making a plan makes the difference between going around in circles around point A and moving from point A to point B. These habits aren't chores, they're evidence. They're part of the journey that then gets to literally rewire our brain to become somebody who potentially we didn't believe it was possible to be. And that might be because somebody else has told you that you're not the kind of person that can save money. You'll never have any money of your own, or whatever that might stem from. And understanding where those thoughts and those beliefs and potentially that trauma comes from all adds to the awareness, which then adds to creating those habits that we want to be able to follow to become the person we believe we want to be. And we get to choose what that is rather than following what somebody else on Instagram tells us that should look like. And sadly, in some cases, or in reality, that legacy isn't always loud. If somebody wants to come and invite you and have a conversation, then by all means share that. But this isn't necessarily what you are used to seeing on Instagram. And maybe we should, maybe we should start that movement of saving is sexy hashtag on Instagram and showing and sharing your journey when it comes to paying down debt, building up savings, building a safety net that perhaps you didn't have before, or being more intentional with what that safety net looks like. So maybe that legacy is letting your kids see that you're pausing before you're tapping your card, or you're pausing before you're logging into Instagram to, Amazon to spend or buy something that they've said that they really need, or to spend money of your own on a takeaway or whatever that looks like. Maybe it's actually choosing to have that awkward financial conversation of being the person in your family that is known for not shying away from that. And that can be really, really common, especially with people outside of our immediate family, if that's the way that you were brought up. You know, money is still one of the ultimate taboo subjects. It's crass to talk about money in some belief systems. So being the person that can bring that up, being the person that says, hey, I want to talk about my will, for example, I want to talk about a lasting power of attorney, could be something that so many people shy away from and run away from and not want to have that morbid conversation. But maybe that's you. Maybe that's the example that you set, and show others that that is actually how we get to be ahead and we don't bury our head in the sand. Maybe it's unlearning financial people pleasing in favor of having some boundaries. Maybe it's saying no to that late night conversation with a client or a co-worker. Maybe it's saying no to catching up on the weekend to check on emails so that you're a little bit ahead of them on a Monday. Maybe it's not stepping in to bail out a family member or a friend when they're in a financial pickle. This isn't necessarily your responsibility, and it's okay for you to recognize that these habits aren't shifting you to a place of joy for yourself, of something that you feel good about. It's okay to say no. It isn't about shouting and making a point necessarily. So, what sort of quiet habits could you start to put in place for this to feel like this could be you? You could be that person that leaves that legacy. So some examples could be to set a reminder in your phone to check your finances once a week. Actually setting a money date on a regular basis where you sit down and look at your savings, you look at your spending, you look at your progress, you look at making sure if you run your own business that you're keeping on top of your bookkeeping and that you're recording your expenses and you're saving your receipts, whether that's digitally or physically, somewhere that they can be accessed later. And future you, trust me, is going to thank you for that when it comes to filing a tax return, as an example. Quiet habits can look like journaling about what wealth actually means to you. You know, does wealth equate to having a certain amount of money in the bank? Does wealth mean that you can say yes to a holiday once or twice a year? Does wealth mean turning down the opportunity of work because you know that financially you're going to be okay? You don't have to keep saying yes because you're fearful that it might be the last time that you're asked. Really think, in a quiet moment of contemplation, what does wealth feel like to you? It can be putting systems in place. It can be automating transfers for a fund for yourself, for savings, for making sure everything is taken care of with the house, or that you have some money set aside for any unexpected bills. It can look like saying no to spending money that doesn't align with what it is you're working towards without any guilt. Regardless of what anybody else might say, it's okay for you to prioritize yourself and your goals and that vision of future you. Understanding where your values lie in when you're going through exercises like this help to make this easier. Because if you can't think of an example of what quiet habits might look like, you can think to the value piece instead and start to think about what actions you could take to get you closer to that vision of yourself with those values, or what actions might actually move you further away. So giving yourself a little bit of a toolkit or a treasure chest that you can lift the lid on every now and then and think, yeah, that's the version of me that I want to be in the future. And future you can be a week away from now, or future you can be 5 years from now. It doesn't matter, as long as it's something that you are considering for where you want future you to be. And what we get to see is a very real example of what happens when we consistently save money in as a pension, for example, or in something that we just leave and we consistently do. And that is the compounding power of that invisible work. So in the same way as compound interest works its magic quite late in the day, that it has quite a dramatic effect at the end, this is what we want to be able to aim for with this invisible work. It's not dramatic. It's decisive. It's owning that power and understanding what's important to you and the little steps you can take in the everyday that can get you there. Legacy is being built right now in the quiet chores that you're looking after. So if we take the money out of the question or the conversation, it might look like decluttering your house, one drawer, one shelf at a time. It might look like cutting out ultra-processed foods or additives in your food, as an example, but just one at a time, rather than I'm going to clear the cupboards and throw everything away today and start again from scratch. It's about those little habits that become big results. Because legacy is being built right now in those quiet choices, and future you, your future self, will get to look back and say thank you for doing that work when nobody else was watching, when nobody else was checking in on you, because the only person that we're accountable to in relation to this exercise is ourselves. And we can set that example for others, whether that's to show your kids that this is just something we do. So instead of looking and remembering the lessons that you learn as a child, those scarcity mindset pieces that you picked up and carried with you without realizing, you get to share and instill abundance mindset pieces just because it's what we do. But we always check our bank statements. My parents have always done that. My parents have always saved, and that's the lesson that I've learned and taken forward as a growing person into adulthood. This isn't something that's necessarily sexy. I think it's very sexy, but it's not something that people potentially shout about from a highlight reel. But you get to do that if that's what's important to you, because nobody else cares. What we're looking for is how we can set the best possible foundations for future you. So sadly, this isn't about fireworks. We don't need fireworks or public acclaim necessarily, unless that is what you want, of course. But you do need follow through. This is about setting an intention, deciding what those small steps are, and then consistently showing up for ourselves to be able to put that in place. Because ultimately your legacy it's not waiting for a moment. It's being shaped in your minutes. It's being shaped in those habits and those things that you show up for every day. And the biggest takeaway I want you to take away from this episode is that you need to keep going. Even if it's quiet, in fact, especially when it's quiet, that's exactly when you need to keep going. When things look like they're not building fast enough, we need to stop watching the pot, stop watching that kettle that never boils when we watch it, right? We want to be able to be in a place where we look back and go, oh, wow, yeah, I set that up 10 years ago. Look at that now. So what does that look like for you? What are the things that you're doing on the day-to-day that don't come with the fireworks, but that you feel really proud of for yourself? We don't need anybody else to pat you on the back. You just need you to be able to do that. So I would love for you to reach out and share with me those little daily habits that you do follow through with, those elements of self-trust and self-confidence and self-belief that you are building up to show that you can look after future you, because she is someone that is worth providing for. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you on the next episode.
Thank you for joining me today on Breaking Financial Chains. Remember, you have the power to transform your relationship with money one step at a time. If this episode helped you, please subscribe and leave a review to help others find their path to financial freedom. I'm Tanya, your financial wing woman, and I'll see you next week.